Thank you all for tuning in. This is Iman and Selena, and together we make You Plus Happy. Each week we bring you someone who challenges us to define success and happiness on our own terms with a dose of laughter. Remember to like, subscribe to You Plus Sign Happy podcast. You can also follow us at You Plus Happy on Instagram. So, hey Selena.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. So anything that happened this week that was fun or insightful or brought some happiness into your life?
Fun. I went to a psychic with my friend.
Oh.
Don't judge me, everybody, but I do believe in the psychics. And for me, she said some personal things I cannot share, but she told me I had 4 to 8 more moves before I settle down.
Oh, 4 to 8 more moves. Okay.
8 times, child. You're trying to move, Lord. And that's before I settle. So got a lot of adventures awaiting me. How about you?
Nothing fun, but I guess I had like a epiphany moment of clarity. So I recently, I told you I started talking to a counselor, and one of the things that she brought up, so one of my things is always growing and trying to be a better version of myself.
Whole reason we're doing the podcast. Yeah.
The whole reason. So one of the things that she brought up that really stuck with me was like when there's a disagreement in conversations, am I reacting or am I responding? And I was like, ooh, I like that. So reacting is when you're defending or like trying to prove a point. Responding is what am I adding to the conversation? So I've been trying to practice that all week at work, with coworkers, with just people that I interact with. And I'm just like, it's getting easier the more I do it. Mm-hmm. So that was my little happy moment of just seeing some growth in myself. And yeah, I don't know, just reflecting.
Alrighty, well, we're going to jump right in to our guest this week. We have Dr. Shanetta Weatherspoon, who is a principal consultant and CEO of JPR Leadership Consulting, LLC, working with organizations that seek to develop high-performing teams by designing healthy corporate settings where employees can thrive. Dr. Weatherspoon is also the visionary and founder of the Southern California Diversity in Leadership Conference. She is also the director of the Pepperdine University's Foster Grandparent Program. Dr. Weatherspoon's professional experience includes over 15 years of program management and training development in the public, nonprofit, and financial industries. She has presented at various conferences in many forums related to organizational development, leadership, diversity, and youth family empowerment. She is a proud member of Delta Sigma Theta sorority, and she was born in Watts, California, a small area of Southeast Los Angeles, where she was raised by her mother, maternal grandmother, and aunt. Shanetta is the eldest of 4 children and mother of 2 teenagers. She is in the process of writing an autobiography titled Butterflies and Dinosaurs. Likewise, she and her children are currently writing a series of children's books geared toward empowering children, but particularly children of color. Her motto in life is achievement requires commitment.
Good motto. Hey.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good. Y'all looking good on Zoom. I gotta get out of the game. Okay.
This is Selena, my co-host. Thank you so much for taking time out. I know it's kind of late out there.
Yeah, about 6:30. I just started my happy hour, so it said happy.
What are you drinking?
Have happy hour, you know.
If I had known, I would have brought up a cocktail myself.
Wait, what are you drinking?
Happy? You can't put happy in the title and not mean happy.
That's so true. Good point.
That is very true. I'm a lightweight though. I might be up here like,
You still a hot
yeah, I think that's just, what I'm going to be. I've accepted it.
I hadn't met you and I didn't want to show up drunk first meeting in an interview. All right, we're going to jump right in. So how did you get started with everything?
So that's a loaded question for me because I do a little bit of everything. So to me, life is just always a starting point because for me, I'm dabbling into a lot of different projects at different times, and the start varies for those projects. So for my academic start, I think it was just going to school and just trying to find my place like everybody else, undergraduate, okay, maybe I should go to graduate school, maybe I should go get a doctorate, maybe I should do this, like just the dynamics of academia. And then that took me into like professing and the role that I do now with directing the multi-million-dollar program at Pepperdine University. So that was more traditional, not necessarily the stuff within that, because I was pregnant, homeless, like a lot of stuff was happening while I was in school, but that I feel like that start was just very traditional. Like after I finished school, I looked for academic opportunities that supported my education. And my education kind of complemented those opportunities. As far as like my own business, like I own my own consulting firm, JPR Leadership Consulting, that came out of a partnership initially with two of my colleagues. We were very like-minded. We like doing training and development, especially around human resources. And I'm really good at talking. I'm really good at like helping people know their strengths and trying to bring that out of them and empowering people. I'm encouraging people to be their best. And so that started out of, hey, I can make money doing this. I was doing all these workshops and trainings for free. And I was like, you know what? I'm about to put some dollars and cents behind this because, somebody is charging $3,000 an hour, or, for a session. So why am I going to miss out on this money? And so that's how JPR started. It was just a social entrepreneur, so to speak, because most of my clients I met through my social endeavors in nonprofit management or in academia. So for example, one of my largest clients came from a student. So I was teaching, taught an organizational behavior class in the business department at Cal State Long Beach. And one of my students was like, I love the way you teach. I'm over HR. We need this person, we need this education on this. Could you come and do that? So I think about maybe 5 of my contracts really came from students just liking me as a professor, my personality, and saying, hey, you will fit well with coming to the job. So that's how the business started. My social life, I'm just everywhere. I really find it fun to like I don't like to be stiff. So I like to have balance. Like I have, I've always had 2 kids. I've always been a single parent. I've been married a couple times, divorced a couple times, but I always make time to like chill, have me a drink, enjoy the fruits of my own labor, give thanks, of course, but, take my sip. So, that's, social life just happens. I can't wait till outside opens so I can go outside.
Right. I think we're all there. Yeah. But what I hear you say is like, you're very driven. So were you always that way even before, like throughout your life in middle school, high school? Did you have that drive to always want to do multitask and do a lot of things, or did that start later?
I would say yes and no. So the reason why I say yes is because when I look back over my life, I've always had 3 jobs. And I'm like, did I start? You know how you just take a look at your life? When I started at 16, my first job, I had 3 jobs. I had worked at the pizza place, I worked at Ross Dress for Less, and I worked as a referee for the city of Lakewood. And so I was like, wow. I always had this many jobs. Like since I started at 16, I've always had 3 jobs, been in school. And so I guess, yes, but I didn't realize that it was drive. I didn't realize that, if I'm not doing a lot, I'm bored. Like, when you're that young, you don't have that self-awareness. You're doing things and you don't realize why you're doing it. So now that I look back and reflect, I'm like, okay, I've always been driven in that way. I think when I dropped out of school at about my second year into college, I was dating this thug. I'm gonna just keep it real if that's okay. You know, I was dating this thug, and you know, listen, I was digmatized. I hope no kids is listening. We do that now and then. You know, he did things that I was young that I ain't never had done sexually, and I was like, woo, I was sprung. And so because of that, I will admit, you know, that I went crazy. I ended up dropping out of school, following him around on his missions, and just got pregnant. And when I got pregnant, so it was about 6 months of just being with him, no school, no nothing, just being with him, no job. Like I had already had these 3 jobs. I didn't have nothing. I was like, I'm just with him. And I felt different. I took a pregnancy test. We went to the doctor, and I was pregnant with my daughter. And from that day, when I got the confirmation from the doctor, I think life just kind of, I snapped whipped me into shape, because I felt like, oh my God, now I have somebody that I have to be accountable. You know, like I have accountability now. I have a responsibility. And so I really just, from there on, just took a 180 and was like, okay, I appealed. I went to a junior college, because right out of high school, I got accepted into Cal State Long Beach. And so I was always in school, but then I dropped out that semester. They didn't want me back, because they was like, you tripping, like you failed, you didn't got a D, a C, a withdrawal, a credit, no credit. Like that semester before, when I was chasing him, was crazy. Coming from a straight A student, like I was like always an AB student in high school. The first met him and just went crazy. And they were like, nah, you tripping. So in order for me to get back into college, I had to appeal. And they were going to say no, because when I appeal, mind you, I'm pregnant. So now I'm showing, and I'm trying to appeal to come back to college, and they looking like, you didn't do well when you weren't pregnant and didn't have a kid. Like, how you going to come back and ask us to come back? So I knew that was going to be their reaction. So I came back with paper in hand. So I came back having taken 5 classes at junior colleges with A's, and saying, look, I know I messed up, but this is how I've been trying to fix it. And if you give me another chance, even if it means on probation, I will graduate on time, and I will do well in school. And so they gave me a chance. I was on probation for 1 semester. That was the best semester. I think I got like straight A's that semester, and I took some very challenging classes. And then from there, it was just seamless, and I just had to keep going. I got pregnant again with my son a year and 9 months later, and it was like, okay, well, I know what to do now. I have the blueprint. I've already had 1 kid. I know what to do to kind of keep going. And that's unique, I think, because a lot of women think when they get pregnant, oh my God, it's over. You know, like I'm not gonna be able to do this. I'm not. So I understand that, and reading and kind of writing about women and literature, that's a gender, you know, that's very unique for our gender, you know. So, but for me, it wasn't like, oh, my life is over. For me, it was like, oh, I got to get my ish together. You know, that's what happened for me.
Yeah.
So it's just very persistent throughout the whole thing. Was there ever a time like in those phases where you doubted yourself and you're just like, well, I don't know if I should keep down this path or down this road? Were you all like, I know this is where I need to be?
I mean, I would never say that I doubted myself. I've always been very confident. I think that's the Aries in me. Like, we're very confident individuals. At least that's what the Zodiac reading says. So I'm always like,
what's the Zodiac sign?
I'm an Aries.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So we're very confident, you know, so I don't think I've ever doubted myself per se, but I will say that I've doubted situations, if that makes sense. So I've doubted other people in situations, like, oh, this situation, this sandwich ain't gonna work, what you gonna do? You know what I mean? Like, so never took it internally, but like, and I guess that's the kind of bad thing, because when you think about it, oh God, I'm about to get academic. When you think about it, it's like external locus of control in certain ways, but not so much. Like, I knew what I had to do in that situation. Like, I knew I needed to remove myself, change some elements in that situation, or focus and ignore it and move past it. So never doubted myself. I never took the negativity within. And I think that really comes from being raised with strong women. Like, you know, for some reason, you know, like men were around, but for me, they don't stand out. Like, if I close my eyes and think of all the influential people in my life, rarely a man. It's I mean, if ever, it's not a man, it's a strong woman. And that strong woman, I was always blessed at every area of my life having somebody, even if it wasn't the same person, but having somebody to say, Shanetta, what you're doing, Shanetta. Somebody I respect, because again, going back to that Aries thing, like we don't listen to anybody, like, because we very confident, like we're the one. So we ain't listening to just any old Joe. Like if we're listening to someone for advice or counsel, it's somebody who we trust, who we believe in, who we look up to. Like we always do upward comparison. So we're always looking at people who are a little higher than us, who are a little. So I've always been blessed to have women in my life who were the first at something, who had challenges, who were at every area of my life. I don't know if that's an angel or if it's a blessing, but I've always had that at every area. Different women, but the same kind of aura and presence for me and value for me in my life. So,
and some of that's on you too, to acknowledge that and to see that, because the same, some people might have that consistently and not acknowledge it or not gain from it. So that's, some of that's you too, retaining that. I know you said, and I know what you've described as being very persistent, and you did have, and you explained some obstacles and some challenges, but was there a time when you were like, I can't, like, I want to quit. I can't do this anymore?
So on important things, no.
Okay.
Let me explain that. So on things that didn't benefit me well, there's always been times where I was like, I can't do this no more. So for me, like, again, I assess the whole situation. And if something in that situation, somebody, you know, I've been divorced twice and I'm 30, you know, I'm 35 plus 2. You know what I mean? I'm 35 plus 2 and I'm divorced twice, right? So that show you, like, women don't really want to be divorced. When you get married, you don't really want to, people stay in it for a long time trying to figure it out. For me, if that situation is not good, I'm like, I can't do this. I got to go because it's not benefiting my life in that time. And so I guess I do say, yeah, I can't do this, but not for my, again, not internally, like not, I can't do this. I can't do this. Like the stuff around me, like this has to change because it's bringing me down. It's causing problems. I'm not reacting well to it. Like it's making me be the ghetto girl that I was fighting in the 6th grade all the time. Like, you know, I'm not reacting well, or, you know, it's making me behave wrong, you know, so I have to remove myself. So yeah, I have said I can't do this, but never on myself, always on a situation. So I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, a quick follow up to that. When, this is a side note, when you got those divorces, did you feel any shame or embarrassment? Because I'm going through a divorce, that's why I'm asking. And I know, and I've talked to some people, and sometimes they'll say that they, you know, it's like they let people around them down, or they let the family down. And so did you have any of that, or you were just like, no, this ain't good for me, I'm out?
Oh no, honey. Listen, a divorce for me, you know, first of all, I grew up in a Christian, you know, background, and, you know, married, you stay together, like, you know, like that show, you know, although I have some women in my family before me who have been divorced, but it's not something that they push, or, you know, like talked about the divorce. Everybody talked about the relationship. No one talked about what happened with the divorce. So really, I didn't even know how to be divorced or get a divorce, because no one ever, although folks had been on their 2nd and 3rd marriage, they ain't talk about how they got to the 2nd and 3rd marriage. And so, and that's another thing, I'm gonna answer your question, but that's another thing. I think women, as women, we need to talk more. We need to stop being ashamed of certain things so that we can help a sister out who's going through something that we already been through, for example. So I will say that I did feel some shame, but again, because I'm a high achiever in many ways, and a divorce was a failure to me.
Right.
I went through a lot of therapy to get through that. Like, I wasn't mad about losing him. I was trying to keep him because I was like, I can't fail at this. I gotta win at this. I've won at everything else. Well, all these other obstacles, heck, I've raised 2 kids. They're great. I've, you know, built myself up out of the ground. Like, I could win this. But what you don't understand about marriage is that it's not you. You only can bring 50% of what's happening in that situation. The other 50% is somebody else, and you can't control what they're doing or what they are not doing. And so And so I realized that I wasn't happy. In my first marriage, I realized that I wasn't happy. And I had 2 children with my ex-husband, my first ex-husband. And that was what kept me as long as it kept me. Because I was like, I can't, the statistics about, I started reading about, I'm an academic by trade, so I'm like, oh Lord, the kid's gonna be crazy, like, oh, I can't get a divorce. He wasn't beating me, cheating on me, or stealing from me. So I was like, that's the only reason why they told me I should get a divorce. So I could be fat, unhappy, and just miserable in this situation. But, and I went to work one day. See, women in my life, going back to that, I went to work one day and one of my colleagues said, Shanetta, what's wrong? You're not being yourself today. And I was like, man, I'm unhappy. I really been pondering a divorce, but I feel bad because the kids are young and and I just let it out with her. And she was like, well, you know what? My parents married until they died. I mean, they were married until they died, till death, and it killed them. The marriage killed them. They both died young because they were unhappy and they were miserable. And we were unhappy and miserable as children. She said, all of my siblings were unhappy and miserable. I wish my parents would have divorced because they shouldn't have been together in the first place. And they were standing, we felt so much guilt because they were always standing there with us. They were together because of us. And we felt that guilt. And I was like, and when she said that, I was like, that was the sign that I needed. Like, oh my God, my kids are young. Their kids are resilient. I need to do this now before they get older and get used to the situation. So I divorced when my kids were very young. I think they were about 4 and 6, and so I was like, I got to get this done because I don't want them to think that this is a happy relationship. Like, I would sit in my car for hours and just not go in the house, be parked outside my house, just be like, oh, I gotta go deal with this man.
Right. I was getting hotel rooms. What? By myself. I was like, I can't go in there today.
I'm going up in there and deal with him today, Lord. I'm driving.
It's costing me too much money in hotel fees. I gotta get out of this man.
Now, when a sign you need to get a divorce is when you parked outside and do not want to go in your house.
Right.
Paying for hotel fees and you do not want to go in your house. That's
all.
Marriage is
the hotel. Go to the courthouse or wherever you gotta go. Just go and get the paperwork because this is not
in front of the courthouse. Okay. And that was my sign. So again, women in your life at the right time being like, girl, do you know what men, like, we don't know how to love now because our parents was our example putting us through that crap. I wish my mom would have got it. So I was like, oh, okay. And really looking back on it, I don't believe, like, there are some hiccups, but I think my kids are very, because they were so young, that was us, me and their dad being apart, parenting them to get co-parenting was their normal. So they didn't really remember before what they remember is mom and dad happy apart, as opposed to mom and dad being unhappy together. And so I'm grateful that I did have that person in my life to tell me that, and that I did make the decision and move forward with the divorce, because my kids are able to see us both in a happier state because we were not happy together, And so, so that is actually a blessing. I did learn though, because I was very strict on not bringing anybody around my kids after I got a divorce, and I think some women are like that. They're like, oh no, can't have. But my ex-husband was really good about getting the kids on the weekend, and so I always had kid-free weekend. I had a hashtag and everything, like KFW weekend. So I would turn up on kid-free weekends. Lack of a better word, I was weekend. I was doing the hoe up with what's her name, Amber Rose, on weekend. And my daughter said I used to take them to dinner every Tuesday night. And one time at dinner, she was like, "Mommy, why don't you have a boyfriend? Like, you're pretty, you're smart, like daddy has a girlfriend, like what's wrong with you?" And I realized that I was keeping normal social interaction between a man and a woman away from my children. So I started loosening up a little bit, like people who were a little more serious, I would bring them around, as opposed to like, no one can meet my kids. Like a guy has dumped me because I've been like, you can't meet my kids. Like, kid-free weekend, that's it, So I had to adjust a little bit. But that's a learning, because again, no one tells you how to do a divorce. They tell you, they've been married 3 times, but they don't tell you the small nuances that you have to kind of figure out,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess one of the things I keep hearing in terms of like a theme is you just being receptive to other people's like insight. And I know you said that you're a sign, you're like, nah, I know what I'm doing. But it seems like throughout your life, you've been very open to other people's feedback and kind of internalizing the positive and like, how can I use this for my situation?
Most definitely. Most definitely. I think you said that really well. I think, you know, I'm very confident. I know me, but I don't know everything. And so I think I'm although in that way, I'm self-actualized. I'm not going to say I'm perfect, but in that way, I'm self-actualized. Some good advice, especially from someone who I respect, who I see has a good, like, I'm not taking advice from any old Joe Blow. Like, your life all screwed up and you want to come tell me how, no. Right? Mm-hmm. But like, you know, people who, for the most part, because no one's perfect, but people for the most part got it together in certain areas, I respect that. And I will, because I respect that, I will listen. You know, I'll be like, okay, all right, get that. Yeah. So I guess it's a caveat to that. Like, they have to be, I will listen if I feel like, if I've assessed that they are worth listening to.
Mm-hmm. And I guess just a follow-up question, is there like a piece of advice that you feel like stuck with you the most throughout these strong women in your life and coworkers? Like, is there a piece of advice that you felt was really something that you continue to live by? Or?
Of course, yeah. So there's a couple things. One of my mentors, who actually wrote my letter of recommendation for my first graduate program, she is deceased now, but she was a lot older. Miss Merle Nobles. She was very influential. She was like the first person to do something like she was like in the Guinness World Book, whatever it's called. And she was a very wonderful woman, but very humble. Like, you wouldn't even know that she was like, what? And you got a master's in what? And you working here at Ujima Village in the projects? What? Like, how does that happen, right? Very humble. She always told me, Shanetta, you never know when you're entertaining an angel. Like, so respect people, be open, you know, to people. You never know what's going on in people's lives. You never know who you could, you know, like for her. And the reason why she said that is because I had no idea, like, we were close, but I had no idea all the accomplishments she had, all of the life experiences she had went through. And I was like, when she told me everything and like had proof, I was blown away. Like, I was like, and she was like, see, she said, good thing you're a good person, because you would have missed out on all this because you just thought I was some old lady working in the projects. And I'm like, and everywhere we went, everybody respected her, and I didn't understand why, but who she is why. And so she taught me that, and that always stick with me. Like, I'm never, I try not to be judgmental. I think some of my family members might say something different because I'm a little harder on them when it's personal, but in general, like, I'm not as judgmental. Like, that really humbled me a lot, just being around her. And then all of my mentors who I really look up to has always been connectors and mavens in a way that they always lift other women up, you know, always like supporting whenever you can other women. And so that always, every woman, again, if I close my eyes and think about all those influential women, they've all been like, leave the ladder down, help someone else. Like, so that's always been my motto. Like, how do I, even if it's something small, you know, just try to help, try to be present, try to be available, and support people. So that's been a recurring theme, no matter who the women are in my life.
And you've been saying so many positive things about the people in your life. What do you hope that people say about you? Or is that something you think about?
That's a good question. You know, listen, I'm a little off, so people might say a whole lot of stuff about me, you know, and because I usually take my quality internally, like I usually judge myself internally, I really haven't thought about that. But I think about, like, I have been in like a session where we had that question, like, if you were dead, what would you want people to say at your funeral, type of thing, right? And I think that's the kind of similar kind of question, right? What you want to leave behind? Like, what's your legacy? And I think I really want people to see me as someone who is uplifting. I want to be empowering. I think that's one of my strengths, is to empower and maximize on other people. So like someone who just was a support in the smallest things. Like I don't want to, I think that's what I want to leave behind. I think that's what all my efforts is kind of like that's what it's summing up to be. Like, you know, just be a support. I'm trying to figure out a way to kind of let that expand to men, but because I will say, you know, I'm biased. Like, you know, I help women faster than
Okay.
they thought that they, you know, we're in this patriarchal system and they're getting all the benefits of everything. You know, it ain't, but yeah. So
We gotta stick together for sure.
mm-hmm.
And I will say, Shanetta, like what you want is what you are really giving. Because every time I've reached out and I'm like, I've told you before, I'm like, I don't know how you do it all. Like I still can't wrap my head around how you just balance everything. But every time I've reached out for something like come talk to my girls at the mentorship program, or can I just have lunch and pick your brain? Like it's never been like, I don't have time. Yeah. Like you've always been like, all right, like reach out to my assistant and see when we can schedule you in. So that's something that I feel like a lot of people don't do, especially when you got your own business, you're a professor, and I'm like, you've always made yourself available. So I'm just like, I appreciate that. And
yeah, well, I thank you for that, for saying that. And I, you know, I thank all the women whose shoulders I stand on, because again, Merle Nobles never made herself unavailable to me. Like she was always, anytime I needed to talk, Carolyn Smith-Watts, never unavailable. Anytime, text message, phone call, Ivy, Goldsby, like I can just name on and on. Lorianne, my auntie Meg, you know, just all the women in my life, they've never closed the door. So I think that really comes from just watching them be who they are. I'm always blessed to have bosses. Like, I think it's an angel wrapped around me. I always have women bosses, and I have colleagues who be like, I can't see how you work under them. They such a, that favorite word they like to call women, that BITCA, da da da. And I'm like, who are y'all working? Like every woman all of my bosses have been women, from Tamika Farr, and till this day, Tamika and I talk. Till this day, when I need advice, I text Tamika like, hey, girl, look, this, and she's like, you Dr. Weatherspoon now, why are you calling me? And I'm like, look, bump that, answer this question. I mean, from Dean Williams, right now I'm blessed to be working, the Dean of the Graduate School of Education and Psychology, which is the department I am in. She is my boss. And I mean, amazing. Like I don't have an issue with the Dean. Like, I don't know. I don't have that experience. And I think it's because they know I respect them. They know I'm learning and I'm like listening, because I respect everything that they've been through. Even at the Housing Authority, I was there for 5 years, and it was a bureaucracy. It's a government agency. So, everything is like rules, regulations. It's hard to navigate. My boss, Betsy Lindsay, I mean, still to this day, if I email Betsy and say, hey, can I have lunch? She's like, all right, I'm gonna put you on the calendar. What's going on? You know what I mean? And so I've never had those doors closed for me. And so so you can thank those women before me, because I've just never experienced a nasty woman, as who would say, never.
Yeah.
I know there's some out there, and I have been one in a couple of instances when necessary, but that's just never been my experience. So I try not to be. I try to offer and open myself up to.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I thought you had something you were going to say. So I guess one of the reasons we started the podcast was just bringing people on that kind of redefine what it means to be successful, and kind of figuring out on their own path. So when it comes to success and when you're happiest, what does success mean to you? And like, when are you in your happiest place?
So for me, it's definitely doing something that I can give back, and I can have the autonomy to do everything else I do in my life. And so that balance, so doing something I love, right? So that purpose, then also having that autonomy, that kind of balance to kind of be myself, because what I love tend to work well in more traditional settings. Yet who I am fits everywhere. And so just having that balance, not being constricted to a box or to a, well, you're supposed to be this. I get that a lot though. I'm not going to say I'm not faced with that, because when people meet me, every class, I've taught at UCI, I've taught at Cal State Long Beach. I'm this coming up semester, I'm going to be teaching at Mount St. Mary's University. I've taught at Pepperdine. I get classes periodically here and there. And it's never me who they expect to be their professor, especially in a graduate program or something like that. Like I walk in, I'm young, I'm Black, so it's like I'm sitting with the rest of the group and they're like, where the professor at? Unless they've already Googled me, right? So some students do their research and like, oh, okay, that's who the professor. But it's like, where's the professor? And I'll stand up, especially the large. I love to do that trick on the large classes, like the 100 and something classes. And then I'll be sitting with them in the audience, and then I'll wait like 5 minutes right before they're signing to like leave the class because she didn't show up. I'll get up and I'll be like, hi, Dr. Weatherspoon. They be looking like, what? And so I have to be myself in those situations. And sometimes you can't. Just bringing yourself to the table is so important. And I feel like I've been blessed enough to be able to do that and to balance that. And I will not lie and say, I'm not going to be facetious and say that that's been easy, because it has not. Like my mentors, that's one advice that I haven't taken from my mentors, because my mentors are like, Shanetta, you talk too much, or you're saying too much, or you don't tell them this, or don't do that. And I'm like, y'all live by that, because they're a different generation. So their generation is very secretive, very, oh, we have to be pleasant women, like they're very a different generation. And I'm like, I'm not accepting that. If I can't be myself in the situation, I figure out a way to remove myself. Because again, that plate is not fitting me anymore, And so I feel like people are really, that's where anxiety, where depression, where all those abnormalities come from, because we're in situations where we cannot be ourselves. We can't be moody. We can't be happy. We can't be, loud. We can't be rambunctious. Like I want to be every piece of me. I want to be smart. I want you to respect me for my intellect, but I also want you to know that I'm cool and I'm down to earth and I'm just a person, so just that balance. I try to bring that balance everywhere I go, and it's worked well for me. I will say that I probably could never in this day and age run for politics, although people have been asking me lately, like, you should do this. And I'm like, the reason why I won't do it, I know I could do it because, again, I'm confident. The reason why I will not do it is because I would have to be much of myself. I mean, much of myself would be taken away. Like, don't say this. You can't post that. I'll be censored. And
yeah,
in a situation where I can't be myself, So, yeah. Hopefully that answered the question.
Yeah. Sure.
I love that so much. That's so good. So switching a little bit, when you mentioned your mentors and these strong women in your life, but when you choose your inner circle, what do you look for? What do they have to bring, your friends? What do they have to have in order to be in your life?
Yeah, I struggle with that. And that's one of the things I struggle, because I'm so open to everyone. I'm not judgmental. Like my current boss told me once, she said, Shanetta, you always root for the underdog. Like you need to pick the person who's already, already great. So I think that's something that probably is a blind spot for me. I tend to welcome anyone, but I'm also very quick to cut people off. So I'll welcome you, but if at the first sign of disloyalty, craziness, like
that's
not with my spirit, energy's not sharing, disloyalty, I'm like, it ain't no chance. Like people, it's some people who probably gonna listen to this and be like, she ain't lying. She ain't called me back. Like, boom, I'm done.
Yeah, ain't no lie.
Done. So I'm open to anybody. So I guess that's a blind spot. I'm not really selective. And people have told me, like, you have too much to lose. You need to be, you need to be more selective. People are scavengers. And I get it. And that's true. I just haven't, perfected that or become an expert at that yet. So because I am so open, I'm like, well, I want to help. Well, everybody is great. Everybody could be great. I was homeless. I was this. So you could do this. Because I have that attitude. it tends to bite me in the butt, but I self-correct real fast. Like, so that's a pro to that con. Like, I will self-correct quickly.
Right.
It's almost like you're giving people the benefit of the doubt. And then when they don't stand up or they like break that trust, then you're like,
Yeah, everybody starts with the A. Everybody starts with the A. It's up to you to kind of go on down with that fail, you know. Yeah, and you know, I'm a high achiever. So once you get past 75%, I'm like, cut off. You good?
Finally, someone that understands me.
That's like that's it. I'm done, and I think that's why I've been divorced quickly. You know, like my last marriage lasted all of like 9 months. It was like, okay, you turn crazy. Let me go get the paperwork. We don't need to go through nothing else, bruh. So like, you know, I'm really, you know, I'll self-correct. And then people will say, well, you shouldn't have been with him anyway, because, you know, he wasn't educated and he wasn't this and he wasn't that. But again, there go that flaw. Like, I welcome anybody. You're a good person on face value. Okay. Then if it all goes to the wall, I will cut you off. Hopefully before you do too much damage, you know, right? So and so their advice is valid. Like, you know, like it's good advice. Again, I haven't become expert at it. So that answered the question. So my circle is very open. It's more like a like we're flowing in and out.
Everyone is welcome.
Yeah.
I guess kind of going off of that, and you touched upon it a little bit earlier, but in terms of young females that are trying to do something similar to what you're doing, and might not have those strong women like in their life, what piece of advice would you give to them?
Yeah, follow your first mind. Follow your first mind about people, especially. Lean on, I think we don't tell women this enough, but lean on your rational brain. You will be judged for it. I've been called masculine. I've been called, you a real ass N-I-G-G-A. You know what I mean? Like, I've been called all kind of, you know, you have too much masculine energy, or, you know, all things because of the way I make decisions. But I think you should lean on that. Like, there's times where I'm emotional, and that's okay, because it's a place for that too. But for decisions around your life, like, see your life like a business. Like, you're your best investment, you know? So make rational decisions, self-correct fast. No one's perfect. Everyone's gonna hit a wall or have a roadblock. Self-correct. Like, okay, how do I fix this? So that's always been my mindset. It's never been like, oh, this is the end. It's been like, okay, this is an issue. How do I fix it? You know, how do I get myself out of this? You know, so always just have that how do I fix it? Because you're never not going to have something going on, you know, that you need to fix. It's like, there's always going to be an end to every road. Like, there's even life, it's not an endless road. You're going to die. You know what I mean? So it's like, you have to be able to like self-correct and, you know, like, you know, work with the information that you're given. I think being flexible and adaptable is really important as well. So for me, that's always been, I'm always thinking of ways to kind of expand, to kind of develop, grow. And again, to fix things. I'm a fixer. If you call me for advice, I'm gonna be listening for the problem. Okay, so rambling on, what I'm doing is listening for the problem, so I can be like, okay, so
you just venting, basically.
I'm gonna find the problem and say, so this is the problem, and let's figure out how we're gonna fix this. You know, that's just how I think. You know.
Yeah. And we had one more question. And this is in your bio, but how did you choose your book title, Dinosaurs and Butterflies?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. So dinosaurs and butterflies come from trauma, childhood trauma that I experienced. My background, I grew up with my mom and dad, both addicted to drugs and alcohol, in the streets. We had a stint in the foster care system. I was blessed, again, a strong woman. My grandmother had space to, foster us. Like, so we were fostered with my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, as opposed to being in an unfamiliar foster home. And so that was good. And in my grandmother's home, she still to this day have wallpaper. She wallpapered the room that I used to sleep in with butterflies. And it's a green wall with all different colored butterflies, like pink, yellow, white butterflies on the and so it's like butterflies flying around you in this room. And there was some trauma that happened in that room. I was sexually assaulted, and those butterflies used to float around. Like, I don't know if you guys are, Aman, you have therapy background, right? You have that. Sure. So when you experience trauma, especially like sexual assault, like most survivors kind of, they experience like this outer body thing, like this, like to protect themselves, their mind, they block things out, or they kind of feel like they kind of like lifting out of yourself. And for me, I would lift out of myself and the butterflies would float around. So that's why it's butterflies. And then the dinosaurs, my dad was not in my life, but he bought me for one of my birthdays, or I don't know if it was my 7th birthday, he bought me this dinosaur, you remember it was a long neck, a brown long neck. It was a cartoon.
I know just
The Land Before Time. The Land Before, it's probably before y'all time. The Land Before Time.
Yeah.
Land Before Time, there was a dinosaur, this big neck dinosaur, and he bought me this teddy bear that was this long neck dinosaur. And even when I was being abused, I used to think that I would hope that the dinosaur would get big and protect me, because my dad gave it to me. So it made sense that I would think that this dinosaur would be, like, and like eat up, the villain. And so that's why it's butterflies and dinosaurs, because that was my coping, those were my coping things in experiencing trauma.
Oh, wow. Yeah, definitely.
I like the title. It's hard to write about yourself. Like, I can research and write all the time, but it's kind of like, do I want to say that? Oh God, I'm never gonna get a job again with this. So, struggling with, like, do I change name? Of course I have to change names of characters, of course, legal liability issues, but like, do I change my name in the book? Like, is this like a coldest winter ever type of thing? Like, what am I doing? So really figure out that direction. Like, I have a lot of it written, but it's like, what direction do I want to go? Because it's a lot of personal traumatic events, in there. And so I just really, that's what I'm pondering, like figuring out the right way to put it out. But I know it's going to be a blessing to a lot of people. So I'm excited.
I'm excited to read it when it's done. Yeah. And I definitely agree with the whole, because I've been trying to write an autobiography, but I'm just like, I'm not there yet, because you have to re-experience certain things that a lot of times you put in the back of your mind. You're like, I don't want to think about that. And to have to go, deep and that on paper.
Absolutely. Like, I took the ACE inventory. This is the, the average childhood experience inventory. And I think they say like most adults have 1 or 2 ACEs. But I have 10 of those adverse childhood experiences. Like, I'm like off the charts, right? And so when I'm writing this book, I'm also needing to be careful, because a lot of stuff is coming and resurfacing, and like, oh goodness, like, how did I feel in that time, and I'm reliving as I'm writing these childhood experiences. And so it's a challenge, but I think it's healing to kind of talk about it. I'm in therapy. I've been in therapy for a long time. I recommend everybody get a therapist, a good therapist who you can. Mental health is so important. I don't know how I would be here without a therapist. And so I've been with the same therapist for the last 3 years now, and getting me through that process, like reliving and working through things. I went to a therapist before and I didn't respect her, so I fired her quickly. And now with this other So I'm like, cool, like we're working it out, So yeah, like I recommend, I know it's a faux pas or something especially in African American families, like go to church, go to this, but and I grew up Christian, I believe in God, but guess what? It's nothing like what I'm receiving in therapy. So I think there's a place for everything, and you have to, especially when you have those kind of traumas, you need to be talking to someone.
Yeah, that's so good that you brought that up, because it is so stigmatized. And
yeah. You want to, my sister here who is going through the divorce, my therapist, like even before I knew I was getting a divorce, I was like, let me go and sit on the couch. So the divorce didn't affect me as much, like when I was going through the administrative part of it, because I was already like beginning the emotional process of dealing with it before it even happened. Like I was seeing my therapist behind my ex-husband back before we even got to the divorce part, because I knew, like I saw it coming, and I was like, ooh, we about to be divorced. So let me work through this so that I'm not busting out his tires and, amputating parts of his body, taking out parts of his like, so I'm not doing crazy things, right? Let me figure this stuff out, and so sure enough, like I recommend working through that. Like people look at me like, oh, that was easy for her. It was easy for me because it looked easy on the outside. It was not easy, but it looked easy because I was taking care of myself in the background.
Yeah, in front of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So take care of yourself, because it's hard.
Iman, did you have any other questions?
No, I mean, I feel like that you brought up some stuff that I'm gonna be thinking about after this. Like, ooh, I need to do more of this or less of that. But no.
I want to have you on again one day, because I have a lot more questions. But
yes, please. Yes, and you guys do not let me drink alone next time.
Oh, don't worry about that.
Well, it's still morning where I'm at, so I was trying to.
Is it? You know what's happening with somewhere, sis? Get into it.
That's true. Next time I will have a drink in my hand.
And you always can have a breakfast cocktail. There's tequila sunrises, there's mimosas. Yeah,
that's true.
What was the peach one's called? Peach Bellinis. Cocktails.
Options.
I'm bad influence with alcohol, y'all. Let me get right.
Mine knows how. Two bad influences on here.
Right. Well, thank you for having me. I would love coming back, and you guys and you ladies have really inspired me to continue to write. Like when I talk about these things, like, okay, finish up and get this thing done. Stop procrastinating. So yeah.
We're gonna
on.
Sorry, Iman.
No, I was just gonna say thank you for coming on and dropping some knowledge.
Yeah. All right.
So we're gonna do our outro real quick. So,
okay.
Iman, do you want me to start here?
And thank you, listeners. We couldn't do this without you. Again, like and subscribe at U+Happy. Always appreciate your feedback. Remember to follow us on Instagram at U+Happy as well.
And we will see you next week, same time, same place. And we have our guests say our tagline, if you will. Our tagline is, "We'll show you our definition of success if you show us yours."
Say it again. Y'all tagline long.
You're right. It is long. We need to get it together.
Wait a minute now. Okay. Go again. I got a little nervous.
We'll show you our definition of success if you show us yours.
We'll show you our definition of success if you show us yours.
Yes.
I love it, though. I love that tagline, ladies. Great job. That's amazing. It's long, but it's good.
It's work.
Have a good evening and morning.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.